What if two nuclear superpowers were fighting without ever officially declaring war on each other? Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what makes the Ukraine war so intense. The United States isn't officially at war with Russia, and yet, American weapons are on the battlefield. Billions of dollars are flowing. Global tension hasn't been this high in decades. So how did this happen, and how close did it come to something much bigger? Here's the thing. This war didn't just begin in 2022. Back in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. Soon after, fighting broke out in eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. Tensions between Russia and NATO had already been building. NATO kept expanding eastward. Moscow viewed that as a serious security threat. Ukraine, on the other hand, was moving closer to the west. For years, the situation simmered. It wasn't calm, it wasn't chill. It felt like something bigger was coming. Then on February 24th, 2022, everything changed. Russian forces crossed into Ukraine from multiple directions. Missiles, airstrikes, armored columns, and suddenly this wasn't just a regional issue anymore. Because the United States had to make a decision. The US did not send combat troops into Ukraine. That's important. But instead it launched one of the largest military aid efforts in modern history. Billions of dollars in weapons and equipment. Advanced air defense systems, long-range artillery, armored vehicles, ammunition, training support. Not gonna lie, this level of support changed the battlefield. American-supplied systems became deeply integrated into Ukraine's defense strategy. But it wasn't just hardware. Intelligence sharing became a major factor. Real-time information, strategic coordination. Behind the scenes, the US became one of the most influential players in the war, without firing a single shot directly at Russia. And that's where things get intense, because both countries are nuclear powers, and when nuclear powers operate this close to confrontation, the margin for error gets very small. One miscalculation, one escalation, and the situation could spiral fast. But this war isn't just fought with tanks and missiles, it's fought economically. The United States and its allies launched sweeping sanctions against Russia. Banks restricted, energy exports disrupted, global corporations pulling out. This became economic warfare on a massive scale. At the same time, NATO reinforced Eastern Europe. Troops deployed, military exercises intensified, defense budgets increased. The entire security structure of Europe started to shift. Pretty wild how one conflict can reshape global alliances. And all of this raises a bigger question. Is this just about Ukraine? Or is it about the future balance of global power? Because while American troops are not fighting in Ukraine, American influence is everywhere in this conflict. And the world is watching closely. But here's what we haven't talked about yet. How close did this conflict come to direct confrontation between the US and Russia? What role does NATO expansion really play behind the scenes? And could this war redefine global power for the next generation? In part 2, we break down the nuclear deterrence factor, the red lines that almost got crossed, and what happens if those lines disappear. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter.